Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khafif. I'm excited to give a brief overview of our upcoming studio next spring semester. Amphibian Typologies and the Urban Imaginary is going to be co-taught by myself and Darcy Engle, and is also counting as an urban design studio. Rising sea level and surging extreme weather events, largely due to planetary climate change, continually threaten the livelihood of more than 40 million US Americans living along coastal areas. The Hampton Roads region in the Chesapeake Bay is among the most vulnerable areas in Virginia, and flooding caused by heavy rainstorms and rising sea level has become a part of everyday life, with massive social, environmental, and economic long-term costs. The raising question remains how sea level rise and ongoing urbanization can find a state of sustainability and resilience. This research studio is approaching the challenge of coastal resilience through a multi-scalar typological lens, ultimately asking how our disciplines can contribute to the redesign and the reimagination of these increasingly amphibian habitats to serve humans and non-humans alike. The studio will be located in Norfolk. The city is nearly 90% man-made and is basically constructed out of brownfield sites, and the waterfront specifically served in the past and currently industries and the Navy. These large-scale engineering projects have historically been employed as defensive strategies against the water, but these measures are increasingly proving insufficient as the only means to address the occurring environmental transformation. We will collaborate with the city, who through the Coastal Resilience Plan of Virginia is spearheading the development of strategies and scenarios addressing sea level rise over the next 50 years. But Norfolk historically had always been exposed to weather events and flooding. You can see here two historic maps and historic images, seeing that the natural coastline of Norfolk looked very different just at the turn of the last century. And you also might know that under the area is a crater, and this crater is still sinking, which means the sea level in the Hampton Road area rises much faster than along the other coastlines of the US. So this is us. As I mentioned, Khafif. I'm an associate professor and the director of the Urban Design Certificate in the upcoming Master of Urban Design. I'm teaching in the planning department and in architecture, and I'm co-teaching together with Darcy Engle, who is a lecturer and was a research fellow in the Yamuna River project from 2018 to 2020. And we both bring an incredible capacity to the studio to deal with water-related issues. But we are not alone. Throughout the semester, we will be working with a network of both internal and external collaborators. Ali Fahd is teaching a planning studio, also located in Norfolk. Shurui Zhang is a UVA alumna and Sea Level Grant Fellow this year. Kyle Spencer is a Deputy Resilience Officer in Norfolk, and Anne Phillip is spearheading the Regional Coastal Resilience Plan for Virginia. The project is not a standalone project, but embedded within a larger research agenda that we were looking at recommissioning land along the coastline of the Hampton Road area for spatial and temporal strategies to generate a resilience framework. Over the last year, Ali Fahd and myself conducted an analysis and a GIS database showing publicly owned land, federal, state, and city-owned land in combination with brownfield sites, residual lands, and waiting land resources to address rising sea level rise. In this study, we developed a framework utilizing these lands and infrastructures to act as potential players in a coastal resilience strategy for the Hampton Road region. We have an exhaustive GIS database that we will also provide to you, and here we specifically look at parcel shot land ownership as well as different sea level rise scenarios. There are additional local projects going on, and it's exciting to see how much these design efforts are already taking place. The Norfolk Harbor Park, for example, by SGH, or the Ohio Creek project developed by Scape and Kate Orff, which looks at water backflow on site caused by narrow pipes which are unable to release water after heavy rainfalls. There's an incredible resource, the Titan website, that shows sea level rise and water penetration feet by feet. And when we had our meeting with Kyle, it was very interesting to see that there are already a series of different categories. We identified them as blue fields. These are lands that are currently bought by FEMA that are going to be uninhabitable, and landowners are basically selling this land. And while FEMA is not allowing for any future residential program on these sites, the city is very interested to think about what are these new blue fields that are going to be flooded and are going to be, at the end of the day, federally owned land. There are also black fields, highly polluted industrial site, brown fields, gray fields, and a series of small existing green fields. This is an example from our study, just looking at the gateway and the Navy-owned sites at the entrance of Norfolk. And just to give you an idea, we are really looking at parcel sharp inventories. Who's owning this land? What is the geometry, the site, the current land use? Is there a pattern of repetition along the coastal area? The city is going to be organized in 5 phases. We will start with an operational analysis, looking at the city and the Elizabeth River watershed region. This is going to generate a site inventory based on existing condition. We will work all together through charrettes and workshops on a coastal framework that identifies site typologies. Then students, either in teams or individually, will work on their design project. And here it's really about the invention of amphibian typologies, looking at morphology, temporality, and program. Then it's important to step back once more from the site and to look at potential patterns of repetition along the coastline. In this context, we are again looking at the idea of type along the city's waterfront. And lastly, this studio will, throughout the semester, have a huge emphasis on the urban imaginary and new forms of visualization and communication to communicate these really important new ideas and inventions. We are also intending to submit the project to the Green New Deal Super Studio, specifically in relationship to new economies, maybe aquatic and urban renewable energy programs that we are integrating specifically into novel public spaces and infrastructures. Here are just a couple of examples, how infrastructure can be understood as a hybrid type and not only as a seawall, being a public space, but also potentially able to generate energy, etc. This is work by RVTR, conduit urbanism on the left and infra-ecology urbanism on the right. We will also study all the fantastic precedents that we can get from the Netherlands. The Netherlands low-lying land is 50% under sea level, and over the last 1,000 years, the country developed in high synthesis between engineering, science, landscape architecture, and planning, a series of wonderful typologies that we can learn from floating neighborhoods to infrastructural sites that also serve as public places and spaces, as well as housing that is already developed to be in amphibian territory. We also already compiled a series of exciting design-based projects that speculate on new forms of aquatic urban futures. Each of these few projects that I'm going to show look at hybrid prototypes. Through the design research, they emphasize the project's needs to couple functionalities and sometimes organizational structures to support novel narratives for architecture and landscape architecture interventions. They embrace actually that the water is going to come and is going to rise, and develop within this scenario, hybrid water management system, clean energy production and food production, as well as civic aquatic living in fearless ways. We also began to assemble a catalog of resources and will continue doing this and expanding in these coming weeks until the semester starts. In addition, we also have a series of visiting guest lectures and workshops that we are planning, and these will be confirmed at the beginning of the semester. Among those, I just wanted to quickly add that we have a series of these readings, for example, the structure of coastal resilience, which was an earlier study conducted or funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and conducted by universities, for example, Penn Design, who also looked at sites in Norfolk, and rising sea level scenarios. So all of these, some of these readings are digitally available, and we are happy to provide those to you if you are interested to take the studio. So once again, thank you for listening. Amphibian Typologies and the Urban Imaginary. Darcy and I are very excited, and we will develop the precise syllabus over the next 2 months, basically until the semester starts. We hope to see you in 2021, and please don't hesitate to get in contact with us with any questions or if you are interested in readings over the break. Thank you. Bye.